Rev up your engines! Got an '07 Corolla. The guy bought it and immediately made $1,000 in his pocket. How did that happen? He bought the thing for 1,200 bucks, had like 130,000 miles on it, but the next day he's driving around, wham, he gets hit. The insurance company looks at it, they give him 2,600 bucks to fix it, but he doesn't fix it. They're great vehicles that run a long time. They're not tanks by any stretch of the imagination, but all he did was buff it out. Now, you look here, you can see a little crease, okay, you know, but he didn't put any money into it other than buying a towel and some buffing material. He just told me he was $20 worth of McGuire's paste and buffed it out. So he actually got paid to buy the car. He paid $1,200, he got $26, he made money on the deal. Over $1,000 He got paid to take the car. And that was last year. He's still driving it. It's a Toyota Corolla after all. The reasons he got such a good price the car in the first place is, as you can see, it's a standard transmission. There it is. These ones can run forever, can go forever. But unfortunately, the average American today has no idea how to drive a standard transmission. The resale value of the standard transmissions is low. It's low enough that it might behoove you to learn how to drive a standard transmission. It's not hard. You can watch my video where I do it in a Mazda Miata showing people how to drive a standard transmission. If you already know how to drive a car, it's no big deal learning to drive a standard transmission. It makes the car zippier, they're more fun to drive. Just realize, it's not hard. On the other hand, if you don't know how to drive a car, I don't advise buying a standard transmission car. Learn how to shift, put it in gear, and learn how to drive at the same time. My father's generation, boy, they're driving these big hulks with no power steering, no power brakes, and they had to learn how to shift, drive, control it. That was really something. If you already know how to drive, all you got to do is learn how to use the shifter and hydraulics. It's so simple these days that it's not a bad idea. Less maintenance, you never have to worry about an expensive automatic transmission breakdown. You can save a lot of money buying the cars too because nobody knows how to drive them. So the price goes down. When people want something, everybody wants an SUV, the prices go up. If nobody can drive a standard, the prices go down. As we go under the hood, we see perhaps the best engine Toyota ever made for long life. The 1.8 liter engine. They've made various 1.8 liters. This is the same exact engine that's in my wife's Toyota Matrix. Same exact engine. This particular one is the famous 1ZZFE. Now, he changes his own oil. He does all his own work. Change the transmission fluid. Change the brakes and rotors. As you can see. Now, Toyotas didn't need all that much work, but as they get old, anything does. It's all easy to do. And he was smart. The stupid beauty cover's gone, so we don't have that garbage on anymore. But they're easy to work on. There's so many of them out there. So there's a rampant aftermarket. Parts are cheap. There's so many of them out there. So many of the parts are interchangeable. Now, this car came from New Hampshire, and he lives in Connecticut. So the first thing he did, and you're going to have to do this if you buy one of these cars, he changed the brake rotors and the brakes because they rust. Now, you can see superficial rust on the wheel. Ain't going to hurt anything. I mean, it's not going to rust through driving. It just looks bad. Now, of course, there's no hubcap here. This one looks much better because there's a hubcap on it, but it's still got the same rust underneath. That rust doesn't mean anything. Realize one thing about rust. It likes bare steel, bare iron. It's going to attack those parts. By 2007, Toyota pretty much had anti-rusting in their cars down to perfection for the body parts. Not like it used to be. I had an '81 Corolla, and one day the door fell off when I opened it. It had rotted off in Houston because it's so humid. But they know how to make the body and a chassis now. So that's not a problem. Look and listen. Still solid as can be. It's just the bare steel parts are going to rust. So if your rotor's all rusted and its pieces are flaking off of it, change the brake rotors and the brake pads. And if it's missing a hubcap, here's a big trick. Go to a place like AutoZone, buy a set of hubcaps, and put one set of hubcaps on this side so they match. Leave the other set on the other side. Look, you can only see one side of the car at a time, right? I had a house once, it was red on the back and it was gray on the front. It looked nice in the back where it was red, and it looked nice in the front where it was gray. You can't see both sides at the same time. That way, you'll have two spares for the side that you bought, say, from AutoZone, And then you'll have one spare for the other side from the one that you had left over. And then when they fall off or break, you don't have to keep buying other ones. I mean, as you can see, hubcaps are just for show. They don't cover anything up. I mean, it's still gonna rust underneath there. They don't serve any practical purpose, but you buy a set, they'll last you forever because you can lose some of them and have ones ready for you. As we look inside, yeah, it's an econobox car. That's what the Corolla was made for. But it's still got power windows that work. It's got AC, defrost. It's got the crazy Toyota radio. And look, it even had a CD player. This was top of the line in its day. And an ode to modern electronics. It's got a nice little power drop off there. A giant glove box. And speaking of glove boxes, this baby sat for a while in an old falling apart garage full of rats. And when he took the cabin air filter out, the rats had made a nest in it. Luckily, they didn't destroy any of the electronics. He's lucky about that. But that just shows you how hardy these things can be. No sunroof, so it won't leak. For an economy car, look at the room in the back seat. You got a lot of room in these things. Today, people are often whining, oh, I need an SUV for my kids and stuff. Heck, my big two sons grew up in an 81 four-door Corolla. We went all over the country in that thing, and they had no problems. People sometimes think they need a lot more than they actually do. Now, when it comes to horsepower, we'll start this thing up. With the standard transmission, this little thing is actually quite quick. My wife's Matrix is an automatic. It's the same exact engine, only it's an automatic transmission. And for me, it's zippy enough to get us where we're going. It'll cruise all day at 85 if you got a higher speed limit like out in West Texas. They're not as slow as you'd think, especially with a standard transmission. Now, this is a special racing Corolla. That's because he's got a little exhaust manifold leak. He's been messing around with that. And of course, that made his check engine light come on for inefficient catalytic converter. Before you waste a ton of money buying a catalytic converter because it says inefficient catalytic converter, realize if you have an exhaust leak that lets oxygen enter the system, screws up the entire oxygen sensor system, and will often trip an inefficient catalytic converter code. Before you blow any money on something as expensive as a catalytic converter, fix all the exhaust leaks. This has got pinhole leaks. You can either weld them up or cut new pieces on. The muffler was replaced before he bought it, and there's just some holes that you need to fix. That's all. It'll run okay. It runs perfectly fine, but it won't pass the emissions test. It does sound a little bit cooler, though, with that Toyota race engine noise. And, of course, for cars at age, gets phenomenal gas mileage. It gets 37 on the highway. It'll get 31, 32 in town. They get much better gas mileage in those days than the automatics in town because you don't get the slippage that an automatic transmission has. You're driving a standard transmission with direct gears. There's no loss of power. An automatic transmission shifts by fluid dynamic pressure, and the torque converter always has some slippage in it, so you are inefficient at lower speed shifting all the time. On a highway, they're relatively the same because the torque converters lock up, but you're going to get better gas mileage in town with a standard. There's no arguing that. For example, the last time we drove out to Tennessee in the Matrix over there, we did get 37 miles a gallon, which is what he gets on this on the highway. But we don't get 31 in a city. We get mid upper 20s because torque converters are always going to lose a little power. The automatics way more, and they're just not as efficient as a standard transmission until you get to top speed where they all work exactly the same. Now I'm surprised by this. The headlights are still shiny. He did polish them with Plexus. That I always tell people, and it does work quite well. I do have to say, on my wife's Matrix, they're nice and shiny, but they're replaced from a Chinese company, and they were only 50 bucks a piece, and I keep them up so they're okay. But these are still original. He just polished them up. Mind you, it was hiding in a garage. And we have a little additional shot here. This is the rat's nest that was inside the cabin air filter. Yeah, a little rat's nest there. Hey, looks like my hair in the morning. Now, to show how well made these things are, it sat for years in this barn, right? Falling down garage barn. He brought a battery because the guy says, well, it doesn't start. He put the battery in, he turned the key, boom, started right up. I mean, that's the insanity of these cars. This is the replacement of the Volkswagen Beetle, only they sold a lot more than the Beetles did. They sold over 50 million of these. That's why people buy them, because they'll sit forever, they'll start, they'll run. They don't leave you stranded. And yeah, I mean, this one is start of the beginning when they started to look a little bit better. The Matrix was a little snazzier. My mother had one in Buffalo. And you know what? They didn't even put snow tires on the front of the thing. It's front wheel drive. They went through there without snow tires. they know how to plow roads in Buffalo, so they didn't even bother putting snow tires in the car. They just drove it as it is. You put snow tires on it, you'll be able to afford wherever you want to go. In an older one, it has electronic technology you want, like ignition coils, but it doesn't have a lot of the modern crap that people hate, like GDI fuel injectors that have 1,000-something PSI instead of these that run on like 54 pounds pressure. What's gonna last longer, gee, you know? All that pressure, less pressure, of course, the less pressure you have. I mean, think about it. On a highway, 37 miles a gallon. I see GDI cars that don't do that good. GDI does add some efficiency, but mainly it's more for power. The gas mileage is not that difference between this, which is an 07, and a lot of the modern ones. It really doesn't make all that much difference. So I'll take it for a spin. Now we're gonna see what this baby can do, or not do, whatever the case may be. All right, here we go. Ooh, it's squealing tires. This thing ain't even doing burnouts. Let me tell you, these things are made solid, and with the standard transmission, they're a heck of a lot of fun to drive. I like the little steering wheel too. It gives you some serious driving capabilities. I mean, this thing is actually fun to drive with the standard. I'm not joking either. It's a lot more fun than my Matrix. Oh, I wish my Matrix was a standard transmission, but then again, I bought it for my wife for her birthday, and she hates standard, so it's gonna stay in automatic. Now, realize one thing, and I'm not making this up. A modified version of this engine is used in the small Lotuses. Well, it used to be. Lotuses went bankrupt. I guess the Chinese own them. They're going to make electric cars eventually. But this engine, it's small, but don't poo-poo it. You know, it's not a 200-mile-an-hour engine, but driving around, it's got a lot of zip. You'd be surprised. So there you have it. A car that the guy ended up making over $1,000 on it the day after he bought it. He didn't sell it. He kept the car. It runs that great, and he got paid to buy it, basically. And he's put practically nothing in it either. Rotors, $20 a polish. I mean, these things are amazing little cars. It was just a year ago that he bought it. You think there's no deals out there? If you look hard enough, there's always a deal somewhere. Somebody wants cash, and the only way most people can sell anything for any kind of cash is by selling a car. Used TVs, used whatever, go for nothing. But somebody needs serious cash, they're gonna sell a car, and if they really need cash fast, they're gonna sell it at whoever comes with money first. He was the first guy to come with money, and he bought it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.